when we had our podcast, I said, without knowing what our space looks like, this actually is our podcast room. So this is actually our mood board wall where we were going to be doing some shooting and collaging right before the pandemic hit. So this isn't really indicative of the style of our office, but I had asked you, without really knowing our office space, you know, knowing that it was a loft in Soho, Chinatown, what flower would you pick? And Whitney said hydrangea. So
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
I'm actually testing these lilies. Lilies wouldn't be my flower of choice, but I'm testing them, and I'm actually like quite obsessed with them.
You know what? I was actually going to ask you about lilies because we got some great questions. Oh. There we go. I was going to ask you about lilies because we got some great questions from a follower. We got a great question from a follower about carnations. And I wanted to get your opinion on lilies. There was a time, I have to say, where I was obsessed with buying them. And that's because in New York City, we've got all of our delis on every street corner, and they often sell flowers. And sometimes the lily, the plain white lily, was just the best, the chicest of what was sold. What are your thoughts on them? I mean,
my thoughts,
I mean,
and I saw that question.
The smell is so beautiful. The smell is so beautiful, right?
I know. I saw that question about carnations, and I think carnations get a really bad rap. I think carnations, I think mums, I think lilies that like are normally associated with sort of a deli flower or a gas station flower.
Yeah.
Honestly, if they're presented in the right way and they're presented in a single stem bunch, you can't really go wrong with any flower. You know, it all depends on the vase and the presentation. And I think once you start mixing, which is why I founded Flowerbox on the ethos of single stem bunches, once you start mixing, you can go wrong a million different ways. But if you stick to a single variety, it's hard to go wrong.
That single stem, you can make something beautiful, which is exactly the entire philosophy for Flowerbox. So we'll get into that. But let's take our first question. Our first question is from Cynthia. And I like this one. Have you seen an increase in flower delivery since the pandemic started? I mean,
yes.
Is that hard
huge?
Question
we're at sort of
we're at
sort of
hard question to answer, Whitney, because on the one hand, delivery's been affected, but on the other hand, maybe people are wanting to connect and send more flowers. What's your answer to that?
The answer is we've had a huge increase in sales. You know, we're sort of 800% up on last year. And the reason is, I think, you know, first of all, we're missing so many important occasions. We're missing so many special moments and those milestone moments, whether it's graduation. I mean, we've now been through a Mother's Day in every territory. We've been through graduation. We've been through like, you know, almost everyone's had a birthday or knows someone who's had a birthday. So we're going through these milestone moments. And a lot of times you can't see people you love. You can't see family. You're not meant to see older relatives. So I think that flowers are really the best way to say I love you, or I'm thinking about you, or I miss you. And it's like, it's such an emotional thing to receive flowers. And I think we touched on this when we spoke last time. I don't think there's any object you can send that conveys love or, you know, sort of sentiment and emotion the way that flowers do. So luckily our B2C direct to consumer business has seen a huge uptick in sales. And I think flowers just help people stay connected in these really crazy times.
They really do. And I hadn't really thought about that until you put it that way, that there really isn't any other object that expresses those kinds of emotions in the way that flowers do. I just never thought about it that way, but it's so true. From Maria, have you seen an influx of pandemic-related purchases? Can you share what those have been? And I'm assuming what she means is, are you having to send like get well soons or that kind of thing? Have any of those kinds of specific COVID-related, you know, deliveries?
Yeah, I think there's been a huge increase. Well, I know there has been a huge increase in self-purchasing. You know, those people working from home, whether they're buying a plant, you know, we're seeing sort of our average order value has decreased a little bit. And we call it the COVID cohort, which is a group of customers that are now working from home. They're not going maybe out to cinema or going to theater or going out to dinner as much as they would have. So they're buying that little pick-me-up that's sort of cheering their, you know, work from home, Zoom room. You know, you're spending so much time at home. So there's definitely an increase in self-purchasing flowers.
That's great. That's absolutely
which I think
great.
It's sort of that focus on well-being and like your physical space. You know, we're all spending more time than we ever have. And I think that's only going to increase, you know, as it gets colder outside.
Absolutely. And we have a lot of questions about flowers as we get into winter. Now that we're on the subject of the pandemic, my question to you is, what are the exact ways in which Flowerbox has pivoted or changed to work during a pandemic as a business?
Yeah, gosh, there was a moment in March, you know, sort of that when the world was falling apart in March, where I was like, I just don't know if we're going to make it, because half of our business historically had been B2B, you know, both events and working with businesses, hotels, restaurants, weekly contracts,
Yes.
etc.
Right.
And those literally just flatlined. They just went straight to zero. So I was like, oh my God, 50% of our business has just now fallen off a cliff. And I didn't know what the other 50% would do. Luckily, you know, the direct to consumer online flower delivery business went sort of parabolic, which was great. You know, we also launched the East Coast because I was like, why don't we just take advantage of this momentum and, you know, use this opportunity when a lot of bricks and mortar retail spaces have had to close. Why don't we just launch it? So we've launched now the East Coast and the West Coast of the US just this week, actually, and it's going really well. I'm so excited that the brand
excited. I mean, I'm going to get on the Flowerbox, you know, subscription service bandwagon. Where specifically on East Coast and West Coast? Are there towns or cities that are targeted, or is it just, how does that work?
Yeah, so it's basically everywhere that we can deliver with our delivery network, and it's, oh no, you're going to make me name the states. I mean, East Coast is.
Oh, okay, good.
I don't know all of them off by heart, but it's you know, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York. So now we deliver all across New York, and that's one of our biggest territories. Washington, you know, the whole East Coast. I can't name all of them. New Hampshire,
so
Maine. You're giving me a geography lesson. And then on the West Coast, it's California, Nevada, Arizona, those Western states.
Yeah. I love this question, and I'm actually surprised that I didn't ask you this question myself during the podcast, but Jill asked this question. What is the most popular item on the Flowerbox site?
Gosh, it's really seasonal. I mean, during peony season, which happened to be, you know, peak pandemic, it was literally 9 out of 10 orders were peonies. Because, I mean, I wish if I could find a way to make peonies available all year long, then I would really be winning. But now it's hydrangea, like these beautiful, lush, amazing hydrangea with heads like that big. So now definitely till the end of the year, hydrangea are the most popular. Also, dahlia are extremely popular right now, but dahlias, they're so beautiful, but they're just not as sort of sturdy, I would say, as
they're not sturdy. Dahlia looks sturdy to me. I wouldn't.
They're just more of a delicate.
The petals are very small, right?
Yeah, they're just more delicate. You know, hydrangea, I feel super confident that our hydrangea will last a good 10 days with the right conditions. Dahlia, best case scenario, they'll last 5 amazing days. You know, for a show-stopping moment, for a dinner party, dahlia for sure, but not for, you know, a sort of great value of a flower.
Yes. What I love is that you have so many hydrangea offerings, and they have such fun names. Like go through the hydrangea names, because they're so like fun. There's like a limeade one.
Well, we have Cherry Crush. I have these. Oh no, what am I going to show you here? These are Sage Blush. These guys. Oh wait. These guys right here.
Oh, gorgeous. Yeah.
That are so beautiful. Velvet Noir, which I just thought sounded like a good Tom Ford fragrance. I think you probably have. I don't know.
100%.
They're so velvety and noir.
I said, you know, naming is so important. It really brings you in. You know, I love it. And they're green and red hydrangeas. You've got the blue. You've got the classic white. You've got a lot.
Pink Knickers is my favorite. Pink
What
Knickers.
Is it called?
Pink Knickers.
Pink Knickers.
Like
just
pink
that
underpants.
pale. Yeah. That's a great name. Great name. From Erica, can you explain the process for how you're able to source both flowers and delivery capabilities in so many locations?
Yeah, great question.
Really good question.
Big fat headache is the answer. No, I mean, really, it's like more than a flower company. We're really like a logistics and tech company. So, I mean, so many people ask me, they're like, oh, did you always want to be a florist? I'm like, no, I didn't ever want to be a florist. And what I'm learning, and the learning curve is steep every day, is we're like a logistics and transport business of perishable goods. So that's the challenge. It's not creating a brand. I'm that I can do,
Right.
you know, blindfolded. It's more making it all work. You know, and flowers are such a challenging thing. It's like transporting food. You know, they're dying the second they leave you. So you have to be, you know, that delivery component's key. We have amazing suppliers, both in South America, locally sourced, and Dutch for Dutch flowers. So we have a very good supply network. We have an excellent we have a distribution center in Los Angeles, which is new, in Long Island City. All of these are like in the outskirts. I mean, they're not fancy. They're definitely warehouse distribution centers. We have one in Holland, one in London, sort of in Park Royal. So, and one in France, again on the outskirts. So I think what's key to what we're doing is that we fulfill every order. And I think where a lot of those marketplaces for flowers go wrong, like Interflora, I think we've all been the victim of a bad Interflora experience, is because they rely on local fulfillment. And the second you're calling some florist in the middle of, you know, Cincinnati and saying, I want to order flowers, there's no way to guarantee the consistency. And the reality is, you're not the florist customer, so they don't really care. They don't care about keeping it. They're just fulfilling the order. For us, it's our name on it, and it's so key, that consistency of product, the consistency of quality, the consistency of offering, so that's been very important to me, that part of the equation.
Did you spend a lot of time in that sourcing process, doing a lot of traveling?
Yes, and to be honest, it's constantly evolving, and I don't think we're there yet. I think, you know, even often I'll be like, what is this? How come I've never seen this? And maybe it's rare, and maybe it's something that we can't sell at scale because it doesn't perform well, it's not readily available, it doesn't last as long, but I'm constantly seeing new things. I'm like, how come we don't have that? So it's very much a work in progress. And I think as we are getting bigger, we're getting sort of better offerings from our suppliers, from growers. We have more people, you know, just the beauty that comes with getting bigger.
Absolutely. Amy, do you see I love this. This is actually one of my favorite questions. Do you see trends in flower choices by location? And if so, what are they? What is popular on the East Coast, on the West Coast, and locations in Europe? Does each location have a favorite flower?
You know, I think it's too early for me to say that, but I think our clients, and what I'm very relieved and excited to notice, is they're very much like we are, like just international people. Whether you follow, you know, we follow the same people on Instagram, we see how other people are living. So we're very much the same way. Fashion, I don't think, is really that localized. We're all the way we consume fashion is very international. And I think our clients, I mean, what they do have in common is they all care about style, they all care about quality. I think they all care about value. Like, it's not like I just want to spend the most amount of money and get the most ridiculously opulent bouquet. I think it's one of those, like, if you know, you know type people that know. It's not necessarily we're definitely not the most expensive, which I pride myself on. We're not the fanciest, we're just the best. So I think our clients are discerning clients internationally that have that sort of, they want quality, they want value, they want consistency, and they care about all of those things.
Yeah, they know quality. Kira, what is your top choice for birthday flowers?
I think my top choice for any flower is seasonality. Depends on seasonality. I think it's like, what's your favorite dinner? I think my favorite dinner totally depends on, you know, what month we're in and what seasonally is the best thing available. So for flowers, it's the same. You know, for a birthday right now, I would send, you know, hydrangea, but in March for sure I would send peonies, and then in February, January, I'd send ranunculus because they're so chic and so beautiful. And so I think it depends on seasonality.
What is a big June flower? That's when my birthday is. What's happening in June? What's happening in June?
June, you still get peonies at the beginning of June, and then they make way to dahlia at the end of June. So depending on when your birthday was, I would send you peonies or dahlia. Or you can't go wrong with pale pink sweet avalanche roses. They are just perfect. They last almost
remind me. What
pink
does an
avalanche
rose look like?
They're just perfect. It's sort of a perfect thing. They last, you know, a good 2 weeks if they're cared for. They're just beautiful. Even pink now, I still don't tire of them.
I love that. Jennifer, from your time in fashion, who sent the most spectacular flowers to Tom Ford?
Carl. For sure. Carl, I mean, you would need like a truck to get them home to, you know, like to get them to Tom's house. Yeah, they were in, he would send just like literally as big as like a giant coffee table of white orchids always. I mean, they'd come in, it took 2 people to carry them in.
And
they were spectacular.
What was the vessel for so many orchids? I can't even imagine what
it was always like a huge basket, almost like a beautiful dark wicker basket.
Yeah.
But I remember once Tom was leaving, he had to go travel. I think he was going back to LA. And so he's like, oh, take those home because they're going to die. And literally they took up my whole apartment. I was like 23. I had orchids that probably cost more than my apartment. But
you're like stepping around them in your apartment.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. We talk a lot about how, so everyone, listen to the podcast, and we talk a lot about how flowers play a huge role in the fashion industry. There's sort of a special, I don't know, a kind of a gift of choice, and so many other things, and we talk a lot more about that. Liz, I noticed that, here's our carnation question. I noticed you carry carnations on the site. Have carnations gotten a bad rap, and what are your thoughts on them? I mean, we touched on that a little bit, but what would you use carnations for these days? Would you?
Funnily, we've been shooting for the holidays, like shooting holiday tables, and red carnations are really beautiful, and they give great value. And back to this sort of cohort of customers that are buying for themselves, maybe not, you know, a lower age group, you know, that it's a super beautiful gift. And you put them in little bud vases. I know there's a question about bud vases too, but you put them in bud vases and you have a tablescape done for such a small amount of money. I mean, another example of that is sunflowers, which I resisted. I was like to the team, I was like, no, they're tacky. They're like gas station flowers. And now they've like finally convinced me, especially all the younger kids on the team. And we're selling them like sell out. Because they make people happy. They look great if they're in a chic, like, you know, onyx vase. They look amazing.
Yes, I've been buying sunflowers this summer, again, out of like sort of the best that you can find when you need to find something quick. And I found that you can, when you cut them very short and put them in a short vase, they can look really, really great, you know?
They can. It's all context, I think.
And when it comes to, yeah.
But that's a big part of what I'm trying to do with Flowerbox, the same way, you know, like you do too. It's not just how to buy it, but it's what to do with it. And that editorial element of people are like, I don't know what to do with this. And you can tell such a big story with the flowers that you buy or send. So I think part of like my role is education too.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the editorial section on the website. It's really part of who you are. It's in the DNA of the brand, right?
It really is. It really is.
Joanna, I never know when to remove and when not to remove leaves from stems when making my own arrangement. Is there a rule for that?
Yes, remove as many as you can because the leaves drink water. So you're basically starving the stem. The leaves get them before the actual flower gets them.
You know, I always remove them because I remove them, but I didn't realize that they're stealing water from the flower.
Stealing water from the bloom. They are. That said, I think it looks chic to have a few beautiful leaves just to break up the flower at the top. So I would leave a few at the top above where the vase ends, just to frame the flower.
Yes. That's good. Good tip. Gray, you sell a group of bud vases on the site. We do talk about that on the podcast. I collect bud vases myself. What is your favorite flower for bud vases? The shorter, smaller, tiny vases that are collectible.
We sell the Bailey bud vases. And I started selling them because it was impossible to find something a little more sophisticated than that jam jar thing that I think a lot of people do or like. So I wanted something more elevated. I also think what's beautiful about bud vases is it is literally impossible to go wrong. You don't need, so I mean, if you buy our bud vases and you buy 10 stems of practically any flower, I mean, not hydrangea because they're too big, but so I think delicate flowers are amazing. You put 2 in each vase, done, sorted. You have 5 vases, you put 2 stems in each. You can buy from carnations to, I mean, I think like sweet peas, dahlia, those little beautiful delicate flowers look amazing. I think another good tip, which our florist taught me, is have them at varying heights. So if you have a dahlia, have one head here and then have one head here, and it just makes sort of this beautiful movement. And you don't need to have any skills, you know, and literally it's your tablescape just done.
It's foolproof.
In 5 minutes.
It's foolproof, and you say on the podcast too how you like them for a dinner party, because it's just down the center of a table, right? End of story.
Yeah, and you can change the color, change the whole, you know. It's just so easy and
so
really
easy.
Not expensive too, which I think
I was
is
going to
great.
say an affordable way to do flowers, especially
and just make everything feel a bit more special. And I think that's what we need right now. Is just, even if it's for, you know, your husband's birthday or your best, it just like elevates it and makes, you know, it feel like that extra effort has gone into it.
Yeah. Joe, how long did it take, big question, how long did it take you to get your business off the ground?
Oh my God, I'm still getting the business off the ground.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm like, when do we stop calling ourselves a startup? Because we still operate feel very much like a startup.
That's right.
I got the team a toilet in our warehouse in London after our last fundraise. It's like that startup-y. But so it's taken, you know, we're so not where I want to be yet. I wouldn't even.
But was there a point, Whitney, when you said, like, you were able to sort of say, okay, we're over the hump?
No, I feel like I'm going up the hump now.
Spoken like a true entrepreneur. Melissa, I just started my own business and would love to know how long were you working by yourself before you brought someone on to help, and what was that person's role?
So I first hired someone to help answer the phones. Like, that was key. But then my first really big hire was a COO. His name was Lorenzo. He stayed with me for like 3.5, 4 years. And he was so great came from a business background, so great at helping putting like structure, putting the right processes in place for, you know, the right marginality, all of the things that are so critical at the beginning of a business that I didn't know how to do, really, to be honest. You know, from having Monday team meetings to put a real structure into place that helped us. And now, of course, we've grown on that and built on that and expanded on that. But it was really, he was a key partner for me in the early days.
John, what is your own day-to-day schedule like as the founder? What do you work on?
Well, flowers are very much an early morning business, because I feel like there's always fires to put out, always. And they're like, it's just one of those industries. I think fashion's a lot like that too. I don't know, I feel like there's always maybe fashion's not as much like that. Fashion in the lead up to the show is like that, where there's always like last minute everything. Flowers are like that.
The lead up to the show, the lead up to the shoot. Yeah. What happens in the morning? What happens in the morning when you're
something's come in, it's too open, it's not open enough, and we're having a baby shower, and it's, you know, the peonies aren't open, they're still in bud, so you're sitting there putting them under heat, trying to get them to like coax them open. Or you know, it's for a restaurant and these aren't open. There's certain elements you can't control. You know, during the season, sage blush hydrangea will come in more blue or more green depending on the soil, you know, and so, you know, you have some that look really green, and you know it's for, there's just always some sort of drama. Luckily, I have got an amazing team, and they firefight almost everything.
Right. And you're dealing with nature. I mean, you can't control nature, right?
I know. And like perishable nature. I do spend the most of the day in the warehouse with the team. I think it's just so critical for me to it's such a visual product, just to see, you know, if you send out a newsletter today on autumnal hydrangea, and then tomorrow morning to see the entire warehouse filled with autumnal hydrangea that are going out. I think for me that connection is key, to be with the product and be with the team. And I love my team, so it's like I love being there.
You get to spend time with everyone. Chandra, how many people have creative roles at flowerbox, and specifically what do they do?
Our creative director is a genius. He's so talented and so smart, and he does not have enough support. I think he needs like 6 clones. Right. But I think we all think creatively. I think that's a great whether even people on our team that don't have creative roles, I think we all have learned to think creatively about a problem and think creatively about how to solve something. And I think that's part of the nature of being at a startup, is like, whether it's even, marketing is a creative role. So I think we all have a creative role.
Interesting. Fiona, what is your aesthetic when it comes to vases?
Well, all the vases on our site, I really ask myself, because I don't want something I want something that can sort of live anywhere. Like, I really do ask myself when we launch a product, like, would I send it to Tom Ford? Would I send it to Natalie Massenet, who's one of our investors? Would I send it to Princess Catherine, who is, regularly gets our flowers? And like, the answer has to be yes to all three. And those people, all three of them have arguably very different tastes, but it needs to be that universally sort of stylish and appealing that no one's going to be like, oh, I hate that vase. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't want something that's really romantic or I just want beautiful objects, so that anyone who loves beauty it's not going to go in a bathroom cover, a kitchen cupboard, like, down with the cylinder boring vases. It's going to be something that that's a beautiful object. Yes,
it's a very fine line between, something that's chic, but that also bridges all sorts of personalities, right?
Exactly.
It's chic, but it can work for everybody. Derek literally just said, I want to know more about fashion show flowers, ! Tell us about
fashion show flowers.
Yeah, tell us about your experience with fashion show flowers.
Well, fashion, I was so nervous when I left the fashion industry because I was like, oh my God, I'm leaving such a big part of my life, 20 years working in fashion. But there, I'm doing exactly the same thing with exactly the same people. It's exactly the same players. We're doing a big send out for Prada on Monday. We're doing, we just did like a ton for Victoria Beckham. It's all the same players. It's just,
which is great.
The language, it's so fun. And the language is flowers, not clothes. But, we work with Dior, we work with Vuitton. From Jimmy Choo, we work with all the time. We work with so many luxury brands. Fashion's fun because fashion's always told a story with flowers. Everything from Christian Dior, who had, was what he said, flowers were the most beautiful thing. Women were the most beautiful thing after flowers. I think fashion designers historically have had a very big love affair with flowers.
Yes.
So what's really fun in flowers is taking a brand's DNA, taking, a brand's message and then conveying it in flowers. And you can tell, endless different stories. That's why I'm so happy to work with so many brands, because what you're doing for Pomelato is completely different than what you're doing for Tiffany. You're telling a completely different story by the way you style the flowers you choose, the vase you choose, the wrap, so I think we're able to really...
What does Pomelato do it for flowers?
Oh, they do tons.
What kinds of flowers does Pomelato do?
Well, for gifting, they do like beautiful white flowers. And I think white is a real staple in the fashion industry because it's impossible to go wrong, really.
Yes.
But they do a lot of installations with sort of like really, they love hydrangea, really deep, rich, deep red, deep, sort of like their brand, their really
brand
almost
colors,
like jewel tone, beautiful flowers.
Yes, gorgeous. Anu, what are the flowers like in your own home? You showed us a little bit. We've got some lilies here. We have some hydrangea. But what are they like in your own home? Are they everywhere? Are they all different kinds?
I always have flowers in my house. And now it's like to the point where if I don't have flowers in my, like when I come back from being away or a holiday or something, I'm like, oh, it just seems sad. It adds so much life to a house. And just like gives you a lift. And I've noticed it more so, over the past 6 months where we're spending so much time at home. It's just a little thing that gives you so much joy all the time.
Yes. Mia, what would you say was the most exotic, elaborate collection of flowers you had to do for an event? And how did you go about procuring them? Do certain events require a more intricate planning process? How does it work?
Oh, yeah.
It's an interesting question. Like, when you have a big elaborate event, I'm sure you've done weddings too, right?
We have. Weddings, I love anything to do with flowers. Weddings are trickier because you have brides and there's so much going on external that's not about the flowers that comes into play. I'm just scared of brides.
Yes.
But we do, the biggest thing we've ever done was for Vuitton. We did a 30-meter floral chandelier down the Palace of Versailles, which was one of those like pinch me moments. It was just like We were in Versailles at like 5:30 in the morning on the whole weekend. And you're just like, this is amazing to create the most beautiful thing for one of the most beautiful brands in one of the most beautiful places in the world. To have it to yourself was absolutely like a pinch me moment.
Yeah.
But
you must have great photos from that even before.
Amazing. They're on our website if you guys want to look in the cut. They're amazing.
How long does it take to plan something like that? And did you have to go out of your general practices to source the flowers for something like that?
We don't. We have a really resilient supply chain, so we can, if you needed us to procure that for tomorrow, well, tomorrow now it's a bit late here, but before 1 today, I could get 20,000 hydrangea tomorrow morning.
It's just incredible just thinking of it. Are you planning on adding any more scents to your home collection? Why don't you take us through the existing scents, because the home collection is really fun.
Thank you.
I noticed that one of your scents is sold out. So tell us about.
They're all sold out. We have an
sold out.
Order now. Maybe not in New York, actually. Maybe not in the US, but in Europe, we're all sold out. We have tuberose, which, like, for me is just one of the most intoxicating, beautiful scents. I mean, I wear Fracas, the perfume, which is tuberose. I just love tuberose. So we have tuberose, muguet, which is, oh my gosh, now I'm just blanking, lily of the valley.
That's what I was trying to buy, but I couldn't.
I'm sorry, I have to get that for you. We're launching eucalyptus for the holidays, so that's coming soon. Eucalyptus candle, which is really nice. I mean, it feels sort of like warm and cozy and autumnal, which I love.
I love eucalyptus rather than like fir or cedar. I don't know. I love the scent of eucalyptus.
I do too. There's almost a floral base to it. It's really lovely, really nice.
Gorgeous. And will it just be a candle, or will that be a room spray?
Just a candle. Just a candle.
We're going to wrap with some more holiday questions. What kind of arrangements work for Thanksgiving? What is your opinion on this? Because it's not necessarily like a flower holiday, is it? Or
no, it's so good you asked this, because we're just shooting, which is coming soon. We've been shooting all week, Thanksgiving tables, Thanksgiving autumnal collection, and then holiday, like sort of holiday tables. And they're so good, you guys. So I obviously sort of warm tone flowers, like burnt orange dahlia are amazing. We have, because I'm literally shooting downstairs in my house
Great.
tomorrow. So I have the whole table set up. We sell like beautiful mini pumpkins. We have a beautiful like wreath for the center of a table that has cinnamon sticks, beautiful orange. It's just like really rich and warm and sort of autumnal.
So it's objects, you're combining objects and arrangements. So
I think texture is key, and I think changing texture. So we also have these beautiful wild spirit roses, which like open up. They're just the maddest, most beautiful, fiery orangey red color. So those are part of our Thanksgiving collection. And again, I think mixing texture, it's the sort of layering of elements. I don't like mixing them all together. I think it looks terrible, but I do love beautiful wild spirit roses in a vase, and then bud vases. And we also have, they're called honey bunny chrysanthemums. And like mums, again, are historically, like the carnation, I think they get a bad rap. But you see them too in a bud vase elegantly. They're amazing. And I think the difference of texture and tone is really what's key, that sort of layering.
So we had another question from Renee just saying, I never know what direction to go in for holiday flowers. What would you suggest? So are you doing a table wreaths something that you would suggest? Talk a little bit more about a table wreath. People forget about that, and I think that's a really great way to.
Well, I think it's great. It's also long lasting. So it's like if you buy our table wreaths, we have a berried table wreath, which is beautiful eucalyptus and red berries. And it'll last 2 or 3 weeks. So you buy it, and we are also selling it with a cylindrical candle in the center of it. So literally, on a round table, you buy 1. On a long table for 12, you buy 2. And that's your table sort of sorted for the whole holiday period. Berries are great. We sell beautiful hypericum berries, and we sell them in white, so you can do a winter white sort of table situation. You can do them.
Oh, that's a nice idea.
It's
winter
so
white
cute
for a table. Yeah.
So, and we also do them, we have them in red. We also have them in pink, and we shot this beautiful pink holiday table, which was with pink berries and pink flowers. It just looked so nice and really fresh. So, it's all about berries and sort of, you guys, please, I encourage you to look on the site in the next sort of 2 or 3 weeks, or sign up for our mailer for Christmas and holidays, because our holiday collection is so strong. We have beautiful wreaths, we have garlands that go on sort of on the mantelpiece, and again, those last 3 to 4, 3 weeks confidently. So that's sort of it's just sorted and one stop shop. Yeah,
I love it. I love that. We had a couple questions come in just now. I think along the same lines. We're talking about those sort of undervalued flowers. Thoughts on Gerbera daisies? We definitely speak about this on the podcast. Do you want to answer someone's question about that?
Yes,
you have a story about that. You have a great story about somebody you were working with, right?
Yeah, well, we did. We were shooting Sabine Getty, who's just like the chicest human being on the planet, at her house as one of our flower bombs, which is our editorial section that sort of goes into these chic people's houses and understands what their floral tastes are, and what their sort of floral signifiers are. And Sabine was like, she wanted Gerbera daisies in every color in her house. And I was like, oh no, I was so disappointed. But then going in her house, which is very sort of pop art, very sort of bright primary colors, like almost Warholian in the style of it. Those Gerbera daisies were amazing. And I was like, okay, that makes perfect sense. But I think it goes to show that, first of all, it's the same way, someone wears a wacky hat or something and you're like, I would never wear that hat, and then you see it on them and you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Or so I think flowers are sort of the same thing, and people tell their own story with flowers.
That's a great note to wrap on. One final question from somebody, who was asking, are you in Chicago, or are you coming to Chicago?
We are coming to Chicago. We're not there yet, but we will be there soon. It's really top of my list. Chicago and Dallas, because I'm from Dallas, so I feel like those two are.
Yeah, you gotta include those American cities.
Because there's so many people with so much good taste in those cities too. I just know it will work there. So coming soon.
Yes, we talk about that too on the podcast, that you really have a feeling for where your customers are,
Yeah, I think so. I think it's very much the fashion-led sort of, and then the rest will follow.
Whitney, it was great catching up with you, everyone. Episode 49 is now live, and you should listen to it. We also have in the show notes a list of about 10 or 11 of Whitney's favorite things, both flower related and not. And you should check it out. Bye, Whitney.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved it.